and Dante Dowdell would be the ones to get the most carries, and they've seen that so far tonight. Dowdell again up the middle and into the end zone. Touchdown, Nebraska.
Day by day, we get better and better. We get better and better. So we can't beat beat. So we can't beat beat. Won't beat beat. Won't beat beat.
Welcome into Day by Day. I'm James with Andrew. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Always feels better after a big win.
It does. We haven't felt this in a while. 2 in a row.
2 in a row.
Yeah.
2 in a row with an FCS opponent on the horizon. Feels good. Feels like we're going to be 3-0.
Yep.
We'll talk about whether or not there's going to be a letdown. We're going to talk some officiating. We won't spend the whole episode here doing that, but we did say in our reaction a few days back that we could probably spend a whole episode doing that.
We got to wrap up our Colorado.
Got to wrap up Colorado thoughts. We'll talk about the press conference, and we'll talk a little bit about Northern Iowa. We'll do all that in maybe a half hour. So what are your final thoughts coming off the Colorado game?
Man, so just one, I think all the content that's coming out is quite enjoyable. But it's just from like an old school Nebraska mentality. Like, we beat them up, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we don't celebrate the injuries, but it's evident we beat them up. We had referees call them holding on pancake blocks. You know, it was just old school.
Yep.
Nebraska. And, you know, looking back, you know, Rule called it. Rule was confident. I love what he said after the fact, that we knew this was what we were going to do. And
I love that.
Yeah, just that the whole team exudes that confidence. And it's just kind of nice to know that Colorado's kind of back in Boulder, just trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do going forward.
You know, I did just see right before we hit record here that like Travis Hunter was really complimentary of Lincoln and the environment. I'm sure he's a great guy off the field. And he seems like a, you know, great dude, but he just said it was top 10 in terms of the environment. And he said it was so loud. He loved the light show at the end of the third quarter. I mean, at that point, the game was over. It's like, hey, man, enjoy yourself. Get the most out of this trip. So
yeah, that's always a little interesting to see the opposing team in that moment. Dancing and stuff. And you wonder what psychologically it does do to the opposing team. That does it kind of get them
pump them up
out a little bit. It either pumps them up or it gets them to kind of focus on something that's not the game, and that can throw them off, you know? So yeah.
I want to talk a little more about people's disappointment in the final score, just for maybe a minute. I don't know if you've seen any of that, but I think people just expect, I mean, I had a conversation on Twitter with somebody where people just do math, right? They're like, okay, we 28-0, so it should end up 56-0. And life just doesn't work that way. Football just doesn't work that way. I mean, we'll talk about the penalties here in a minute, but I really didn't walk away disappointed. I didn't feel like, oh man, like, you know, they were too conservative, or, you know, they didn't have the ball that much. They held the ball. I mean, I should say they had the ball for a long time. They only had a few possessions. There was one, actually, I don't know if you remember this. They had a 6-play. Get this. This has to be a record. I don't know if it was third or fourth quarter. They had a 6-play, 11-yard drive that lasted for 4 minutes and 38 seconds.
Oh, jeez.
Game time, 4 minutes, and like 4 minutes of possession. So 6 plays, 11 yards. Because of all the penalties, right?
Yeah.
We went forward, back. That was probably one of the ones where we had either the 51-yard play to Barney or the 60-something yard touchdown to Ramir. So I wasn't too disappointed. I feel like the game was done. And yeah, I'm sure they wanted some more points, and we should have had some more points. We'll get to that in a minute. But did you now that you've had 4 or 5 days here, you know, did you feel like a sense of disappointment, or were you like, no, I'm satisfied with?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think I remember mentioning it to my wife in the fourth quarter, thinking, gosh, this is kind of a dud to, you know, end the game.
Yeah.
After the fact, when the final seconds ticked off, it's like, no, we won. We beat them good. So no, I'm not feeling that at all. You look at the penalties, you look at, we're just protecting the lead. Like when have we got to do that? Let's celebrate the fact that we just get to protect the lead, get out of there without turnovers and major injuries and all of that.
No turnovers, no stupid plays, nothing that puts the victory in jeopardy. So,
and it's not like they were being super conservative. Like we had a couple drop passes, we had penalties that derailed things. That there could have been 14 more points on the board pretty easily.
Yeah. And I think the one time Colorado scored their touchdown, I'd have to go back and look. I think there was a unnecessary penalty in their favor that put them, even closer to the end zone, if I'm not mistaken. And so Colorado probably could have walked away with 3 points. Really, it could have been 42-3 as the final score.
Yeah. Rule, I think, mentioned that in the post game that, well, if it weren't for, the 2 penalties, I think, on that drive that they got them up there. He's like, he kind of felt that way too. Yeah. I like his, you can tell he said there was no vindication, but you can tell he's been relishing this one. Even just, talking about what the score could have been. He mentioned in the post game interview that there really was no competition second half, or there was, what did he say? Yeah. Like,
he said that on the field, actually, in post game. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, let's talk about the holding. Let's go back. I'm going to tell you about my favorite piece of post Colorado content because it relates to the Twitter conversation I had today. But what was your favorite piece of just post Colorado content? Was it Rule? Was it something else?
Yeah, there's been things that make me laugh. There's I saw the post darts only, and it shows Shedeur throwing the pick six.
That's great. I love that one.
And then in the background, his hip hop song that he performed. I think. Did you see the one of the players in our locker room dancing to?
Oh yeah, that was good because it was his song, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a Hall of Fame troll right there. But I really like the broadcast was so bad. I've really enjoyed seeing the clips, the highlights of the game with Sharp and Benning on it. Talking about it. I wish I had listened to them during the game rather than the NBC broadcast because it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I got to start syncing that up. I don't know why I haven't done that before. Okay,
we're old.
So mine,
we got to put we're old guys. We got to put the headphones on during the game and all of that.
I remember my dad doing that when we went to games. He'd bring his battery operated headphones and the radio. Spin the dial to get to. For us, it was in Lincoln here is 1110 KFAB was where they broadcasted the game. So. All right. Well, my favorite piece of post Colorado content, I kind of generated myself. So it's a little bit of a shameless plug. You see our Twitter handles there. Follow us on Twitter. But so this was a post I wrote just today. The photo, I guess, no, it was yesterday, 2 days ago. Oh my gosh, what is today? We're recording this on the 10th. So I did this on the 8th, late at night. And it was the picture of the lineman holding Nash's jersey, pulling his jersey. It's probably a good 8-9 inches away from Nash's shoulder. And I just said holding is not called on this play in the Nebraska-Colorado game. The photo comes from the SI.com Husker fan site, which you guys can check out. But the guys from Big Red Junkies, so another fan podcast, he comments and he said, Terry, the Rule expert, his analysis on this one during the game was, the question is, did it impede his forward progress in pursuit? I don't really think it did. And then all of a sudden in the Twitter, in the thread, Terry McCauley, the official that was on the television, he enters the chat. Now, Terry wasn't tagged. I have no idea how Terry found this. My only assumption is that Terry searches his name plus some keywords on
Terry
Twitter,
Huskers or something. Yeah.
right? Yeah, to try to find arguments.
Yeah.
And so he says that's not what he said, but regardless, you couldn't be more wrong. And so then now I'm going to ignore that. You guys can go to my Twitter feed and find this. The guys from Big Red Junkies had actually misunderstood what he said. There was more to that. But what I asked Terry was, Terry, is what you see in the picture holding or not? And he said, I'm reading this word for word, unknown from a still photo. A grab in and of itself is not a foul. The grab must result in material restriction for there to be a foul. This is why there is not, quote, holding on every play, end quote. That was the educational point of the commentary. If that grab did not materially affect the defender, then it wouldn't have been a foul. In the end, I said that it probably was enough for a foul in this specific instance. So he acknowledges at the end, I said on the broadcast it probably was enough, but as he looks at the still photo
saying no
of a lineman's arm being extended, pulling a jersey of a defensive tackle in pursuit of a quarterback, he says it's not enough. So I then go on and I post the rule of holding from the NCAA. And I said, I'm not trying to be snarky, but here's the reality. And this is what I said to Terry. If we fans have been told by commentators one thing about holding for decades, and that's not what it is, or it's not what we think, we are owed significant explanations. And then he comes back and he says, given the time restraints of on-air commentary, I tried to be as clear as possible, which you weren't, Terry. You weren't clear in explaining what constitutes a foul for holding, specifically material restriction. And if that doesn't exist, and if the defender runs right through the grab, there is no foul. I will tell you, Andrew, I have been watching football since I was like 6 or 7. I have never heard that before in my life, that if you're held, but you run through it, it's not holding. It doesn't matter if you run through it. Right. It doesn't matter how strong you are or fast you are. If holding is the burden is on the offense who holds. It has nothing to do with the defender. I don't know if you've ever heard this. I was shocked. I was shocked on the broadcast, and then I was shocked as Terry entered the chat. And you again, go to the thread if you're listening or watching. A lot of other people weigh in, and then it became kind of this running joke for the last 2 days. My favorite was from 11 Verts, where he just said, "This is textbook holding. Hope this helps Terry." Yeah. and Terry proceeded to block him. So like, I don't know what you think, but like, if holding isn't what we think, it goes back to like the NFL and like, what's a catch? If we don't know what a catch is, then what are we even doing here? So I'm like, look at this picture. Look at all these. You could go to Twitter and find all the pictures of all the holds that the Colorado offensive line committed against Nebraska. None of them were called. So color me shocked. I don't know what to say. I'm glad we're not in the Big 12 anymore.
Yeah. Like, so what are is he saying referees then should wait to see if the defender runs through it? Like, and how is being released from it and running through it? How does that negate what happened 2 feet behind you when the guy was holding? Like, that doesn't, like, it's common sense. Like, I think I replied to, it's like, I'm no physics
exactly,
but because the jersey went like this, doesn't that mean some sort of tension there?
Right. By definition, if a part of your jersey or uniform or body is held or pulled or restricted, there is restriction of movement. Like, by definition. Yeah. We saw it. I mean, it's reverse, but it's like when Robinson got a hold of Shadur's undershirt. Yeah. And it stretched. What happened to Shadur? He slowed down. Yeah. He couldn't run because there was restriction. Now, that's not an illegal play because he's trying to make, Ty was trying to make a tackle. But on the offensive side, if you do that, you are by definition, you will be restricted. You will be slowed down. But what I kind of said in the Twitter thread was, does the ref wait to see like, oh, did he lose a mile per hour or two? Like, was he a little bit slower? Would he have gotten to the quarterback? Like,
no.
Like,
75% of the time they throw that flag, they're throwing it based on what they're seeing. They're seeing a pull of something. They're seeing an arm wrapped around. They're seeing a jersey pull. And that's what they're reacting to. Oh, that's holding. The jersey got pulled. Like,
yep.
So now this guy's saying no, that like a jersey pull doesn't constitute holding.
You have to see if it restricts his movement or if he runs through it.
It just seems like classic referees kind of covering their tracks. Because it was a nightmare of a referee game too, which they're in some hot water over. So,
and later in the game, you have Ramir, who has a block in the back, which was literally a poke. Like, he poked the dude in the back with a finger, and they called blocking in the back.
Yeah.
So I get into, I could just go on a long rant, but it's like, why do we call a holding when it's not even by the play then? Mm-hmm. Because it's in Terry's mind, it's immaterial. It's not even a part of the play. It has no impact on the play. Don't throw that flag.
Yeah.
But we know that holdings get called 10, 20 yards away from the ball. It has nothing to do with the play, but they'll still call that.
Yeah. And again, visually, how are they calling it? Because they see someone get a hold of somebody. Like, it's just not because they did an interview with them and asked if they felt like their momentum was stopped. Like, yeah. Interesting.
So you know what? Honestly, Terry, if you find this, we're nobodies. We're just fans. But if you find this, if you somehow see this podcast, reach back out. We'd love to have you on, because I don't want to be snarky. I want to understand, and I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me. And no, I'm not an official. I'm not an expert, but I've been watching football for almost 4 decades. And I'm confused. If this is what holding is, if this is how referees are taught what it is, then I don't think any fans have ever been told that.
Yeah. I'm curious what players and coaches feel too. What have they been told?
I'd love to know.
What is it coaching? Because I'd coach it then. Grab a hold of that jersey a little bit. Just don't make it look like his momentum was stopped.
Yeah. All right, let's move on from holding. Let's talk press conference. Let's turn to Northern Iowa this week. But what were your thoughts from we've already had, I think we heard from Rule yesterday and Tony White today, Satterfield today. So any thoughts on the press conference?
No, I like every time I hear Tony White talk, I just like the guy even more and more. But I like what he said today. He said, it's Tuesday. We're the worst defense in America. Yep. Like, we're not going to ride this thing any further. We're not going to stay too high on ourselves. And again, they're facing a completely different squad, and they can see what's coming. They're not looking ahead, but they know what's coming. And so this will be a good test. It seems like Northern Iowa is a good test in the sense of the style of play. Two big backs, they're going to come right at you. I think one of their guys has just through 2 games about 320 yards. And he's like 6'4", 240. So honestly, they're exuding confidence, but they're okay. It's next game. We're 0-0 right now. So
great preparation for Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois they're going to run the ball. Half the teams Nebraska plays is going to be like that. So probably not as heavy as Northern Iowa, but it's going to be good prep, I think, for those teams. So
I think, I was going to say, I think the defense can tee off on this guy. I think, you don't have the threat of the pass. So now you bring down another defender. You bring Gifford in to do some run block or run stopping there. But I didn't listen to anybody else. I did listen to the offense. Nothing new there. They're not going to change what they do. They've been very adamant about that.
Let me ask you about something Rule said yesterday. On Monday. He had talked about how the rest of the offense needs to step up and play and perform at the level that Dylan is. And he said, I think he was alluding to the fact that in the second half, he goes, the problems weren't Dylan's, which is amazing. He's been on campus for 9 months. And then Dylan came to the podium today and he was just kind of like, the standard shouldn't be congratulated. It should just be expected. And so he just kind of brushed it off. He's like, I'm just doing my job, which is a tremendous perspective to have for a young kid. So what were your thoughts on Rule saying that? Do you think that was one of his ways, which we know he's done before? One of the ways that he's talking to his team in front of everybody, in front of the masses?
I think, yes. And Rule, he's intentional about everything he says. I think he was also talking to Dylan. I think, I'm not saying Rule's lying, but there were some throws Dylan would want back. There's some, I don't think Dylan's confidence is shaken at all, one bit, but I think it's a way of let's heap some positive praise on the guy. Which he's been very reluctant to do to this point. This was a complete reversal from game one and fall camp and all of that. This was like, I think he's trying to elevate Dylan as that leader, as that example. And yes, sending a message, really a two-way message. Rule's clever. So,
and I think like the crazy part to me is that we have a true freshman quarterback, and this is his team. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is Dylan Raiola's team. You can see it. You can see it in the tunnel walk. You can see it in warmups. You can see it on the field. You see it in press conferences. And it actually gives me a lot of confidence for the rest of this year. And it's not his team in like a, he's not a showboat. He's not cocky. He's a humble kid. Like you hear him talk. He's just like, it's like, I just love football.
Well, you contrast that with, we're going to go back to Colorado one more time, but Shadur's post game, he name dropped Dylan. How many times did you see Dylan get hit? Like, he's throwing his O-line under the bus. He's throwing his coaching, the coaching under the bus, like trying to protect himself, his image. And Dylan steps up there today, and he's like, someone asked him about the hits he took. He's like, I'll take hits for any hit for my team. Like, the leadership is night and
first
day.
Third down of the game. He didn't slide.
He took. That scared me a little bit, but
he should have slid. Slide. Please slide next time.
But no, I 100% agree. It's the leadership qualities, and like you said, it's not catering to the highly paid 5-star. It's they know what they have in this guy and the intangibles, and they're going to help foster it. So
I mean, it's only been the second game, or we've only had 2 games, but the future is bright, and he's only going to get better. So, all right. Well, let's talk Northern Iowa. You kind of alluded a little bit already to what they do, but I know you said you had some stats on hand. I watched some of their game versus Valparaiso. You could actually I think you could see most of the game. You just Google UNI versus Valparaiso. I forgot they play in a dome. They basically play on AstroTurf, like old style turf.
Cool.
And they beat Valparaiso pretty badly, 35-7, I think. But I will say, this is what I'll say 2 things about the game, and I'll turn it over to you. I'm not worried at all about an upset for 2 reasons. One, you already mentioned it, kind of Tony White's approach and the whole coaching staff's approach to this week of practice. And 2, the game's at 6:30 p.m. If this game were at 11 in the morning, I'd be a little more nervous. I went to an 11 a.m. game, against it was a group of 5 team, Northern Iowa's FCS, but I saw that Troy game back in 2018 that Nebraska dropped. Those games, I feel like 11 a.m. games, anything could happen. Not a night game. I'm not worried about it. Crowd will be into it. Players will be excited. And the third thing, Northern Iowa is really small.
They are. I noticed.
They why go, if you're listening, stop the podcast right now and go Google that game and just look at them. And they're good players. I mean, they're good for FCS. They're going to be a good team. I mean, they're ranked. I think they're 24th or 23rd. But man, they're small. And I think they're going to have a tough time against both our lines.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be hard to have the same juice as Colorado, but you got to think, yeah, they're small. I don't see them blocking our guys at all.
No.
It's going to be another UTEP type of performance.
Yeah.
I think the defense sits by the fourth quarter easily.
Yeah. I actually wouldn't be surprised if we don't. I don't even know what the point spread is. I don't even know if they do point spreads for FCS teams. They probably do. I would be surprised if we don't cover. Did I say that wrong? I wouldn't be surprised if we don't cover, because I could see the other offense not even playing after halftime.
Yeah,
I could see it being 35-7, 42-7 at halftime, and it ends up 42-14.
And then what you'd love to see is our backups come in, and that's been fun to watch the defense. You know, a lot of defenders, McGahee and
you saw McGahee get a sack last week.
Yep. James Williams. I mean, he's fun to watch. Like, just let him go out there and eat for second half. You'd like to then see the offense. What can Harburg do? We haven't seen Harburg yet, so with the exception of one or two plays. So let him go out and try to run the offense and get some points on the board. So
he did go 4 for 4 against UTEP. He did have 4 passes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
But he didn't. Yeah, it would be nice to see a whole half with him. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how much there is to break down for the game. UNI's overmatched. They're probably getting $1 million to come to Lincoln. Good for them. I think it's going to be a rough day for Northern Iowa. So I don't see a, Appalachian State, Michigan kind of thing going on. So
no. Yeah, their QB's small too. He's like 6 foot.
Yeah, he is.
He's got to get in there and throw over Ty and a leaping polar bear and all of that.
I mean, you're going to see another game where we probably blitz 0% of the time.
Yeah, and just bully our way to the QB.
Yeah,
make him uncomfortable. And this might be a game. He's not going to get out of the pocket. It might be a game where he throws some picks, and our defense we get to continue to raise that that differential in turnover.
Are you making an oddly specific prediction?
I better think of one. I mean, what do we want it to do, people?
How do we top what we've already said?
We need people to start, people need to start commenting and telling us what to predict, what you want to see, and we will we'll make it happen.
I mean, for the 4 listeners out there, there's more than that, but for the few of you, the proud, the day by dayers, we've already said that there would be a safety. Andrew said that first game, got it right. I said that Tommy Hill would return an interception for a touchdown in the first quarter, and it would be a part of a 21-0 run in the first quarter, but it was close. Like, that's insane that we said that. Now, of course, part of, these oddly specific predictions, they're guesses. They're totally guesswork. They're wishful thinking, but I am starting to think that we're going to rename this little segment. Yeah. Like you had said, predictions and prophecies, because this is more prophetic than anything.
Well, I have one. I'll reveal it here in a bit. I wanted to cover one or two more things. All
right. Let's get to your stuff, and before we get to our predictions. So,
what are your thoughts on the running back picture? It seems we have the oars are split up now. We have 2 with Moore and then the other 2.
Here's what I want to see. We didn't get to see it for whatever reason. My one critique of Satterfield, and I like Marcus Satterfield. There's some people that really hate the guy. I wish we would have ran the ball more. I feel like we did throw too many passes in the second half. Dowdell had 17 rushes for like 76 yards, something like that, somewhere in the neighborhood. I would love to see him get between 22 and 25. And I think that easily puts him over the 100 mark. We don't need a running back to be over 100, but I think what it does emotionally and psychologically for a team that wants to be known as a team that delivers body blows and wins the fourth quarter, having a running back that runs for 100 yards means something.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't mean anything in the NFL these days. I don't think any team cares if their running back runs for 100.
Right.
But in college, I think it still matters. And so I love Dowdell. He is a different, like I was at the spring game. He looked decent, but he didn't inspire you. He didn't blow you away. But I think what he's doing now is kind of blowing me away. I didn't expect it. So, but I'd love to see him even this game. This is a good game for this. It's a smaller defense. You're going to have the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think they're often, I think Northern Iowa is going to go 3 and out a lot. And so give him 25 carries. Let him see what he can, let's see what he can do. So I love the role Ramir's in. I do feel bad for Emmett and for Gabe. They're good running backs. They are. And we're going to need them. But man, when you got a guy that can bowl people over, run past people, hurdle people, you got to feed him.
Yeah, I'd say what's encouraging to me, I'm the same way. I mean, just it's more they're good dudes that you love watching. And unfortunately, someone's going to have to sit. I mean, there's only so much to go around. What I do enjoy seeing, and I think we felt this a lot during the Frost era, especially, is a little bit of the favoritism that we know Matt Rule thinks super highly of Gabe Ervin, and it would be really easy to say, oh, he's had these unfortunate, injuries and things like that. Let's give him give him that. But no, they're going with the new guy because he's putting up the numbers in practice. He's putting up the performance. So no problem with it. I'm glad that they got it whittled down to a couple. So. All right, I had one.
You have one more thing.
Yeah. Any surprise? Who's your surprise? Your 2-game MVP or surprise players that have come on here in the first 2 games?
Well, I mean, I'm going to take a page out of your playbook. Dylan has not had a turnover, and I think I saw a stat from Arbitrary Analytics. So shout out to Eric Hess on Twitter for that. He's another Husker Corner writer. I believe he had said this was the first time since 1998 that a Husker quarterback did not have a turnover in the first 2 games.
Wow.
Think about that. 1998.
Who's that? Jamal Lord?
Monte Cristo.
That's what
had a fumble, I think he had said. I could be wrong about that. But I thought he said Monte Cristo had fumbled when he came in for. Now, Monty wasn't the starter. Eric Crouch was, but I think he came in one of those games. But so in that sense, Dylan, because he's not being asked to do a whole lot, and we did talk about that a few days ago in our reaction. On defense, really in the Colorado game, it's hard. That UTEP game was weird, right? It's just they didn't have the ball very much. Very long. John Bullock had a tremendous game. And so if I was going to give a 1-game MVP, it'd be him. You've probably seen this on Twitter, but he's the reason that Tommy Hill had that pick.
Yes.
Because he took away the slant route that was going to go to Travis Hunter. He took away that slant route. And then Shadur froze and then tried to basically threw a 30-yard out pattern, across the field. That was an easy pick. So Bullock had a great game. I don't know his stats right off the top of my head. I don't have him in front of me, but he played really well. He always seemed to be around the ball and he seemed to make the right reads. So hats off to John Bullock.
Yeah. Players, offense, defense, for me, Ja'Cory Barney is coming on. I mean, he's coming quick. So he's one we knew would have a factor, but maybe not quite as much of one as we've seen so far.
He's so fun to watch.
To break one. Yeah, for sure. And then defense, I think my favorite player is becoming Mekhi Bayer on defense. The video, I don't know if you saw kind of the whole recap from what he said during the week and then what some of the national media said about him saying something and then him backing it up. He's a fun kid to watch, and yeah, he's there. There's so many. I mean, the whole entire defense, but those linebackers feeling really good about him. So
they are. Okay. All right. What's your prediction for this week? And then we'll get into our predictions and prophecies.
All right. Gosh, I mean, thought about it, but I'm gonna let's see. They have put up. I mean, I'm so tempted to say we pitch a shutout. I just that feels like that's out there for the defense. That's not my. That's not.
This is the game. If you're going to do it, this is the game.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going shutout. I'm going to go 45-0.
Okay. I want to say there would be a shutout, but since you did, I won't. I still want to leave some improvement for the defense, but I do think it's going to get pretty ugly pretty quick. I'm going to say after, I think I had said 42-14 in my preseason. I predicted every game in an article, but after having watched 2 games, I'm going to say 42-7. Nice. I'd say it's 30. I'd say it's 35-0 at halftime, and maybe each team scores a touchdown in the second half. So I'll say 42-7.
Okay,
which I'd be happy with.
Yeah. Maybe some of the young guys get in and they test it a little bit. But
all right, prediction or a prophecy, or both, or just a prophecy. And stay tuned to the end where we will share this week's lottery numbers.
Okay, I'm going to say IGC returns a punt for a touchdown.
Ooh.
This one.
All right.
I'm not going to go as bold as saying which quarter, but
which quarter, yard. Okay.
IGC punt return.
Okay.
Because I said he was also I said he was I can't remember our first pod this year, but he was a player to watch.
Yeah.
So,
which I like.
Yeah.
Okay, for me, I'm going to say that this is the game that Ja'Cory Barney has over 100 all-purpose yards.
Okay.
So return yards and rushing and receiving. That might not be super. That's a prediction. Okay. But here's my prophecy is he's going to have a 57-yard screen pass reception for a touchdown, and there will be no flags. So 57-yard screen pass for a touchdown.
57-yard screen pass for a touchdown. I like it.
They've been running those screens to him, kind of those kind of inside bubble, kind of a delayed screen. I mean, screen is delayed, but where they're running, I think against Colorado, they ran 2. I think UTEP, he had a couple. So 57-yard screen pass for a touchdown.
Okay. Well, I feel like mine has to be a little more specific then. I'm looking
Let's do it. So you got IGC for a punt return touchdown.
IGC for a punt return, but I'm looking here at our background and the fireworks. It's going to be to the north end zone.
To the north end zone. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty good. You and I get this win, get into Big Ten play.
Yeah.
And then we have that fateful Friday night against Illinois, which my preseason prediction that we would lose to them, I don't feel any better about after seeing them go into Kansas. Or I'm sorry, that was at home. I think they played at home, right? Regardless, they still beat Kansas. So Illinois got a good squad. So I'm looking forward to that.
It could be just the perfect test at the right time, I think.
It could be. Yeah. Thankfully, it's at home. So, all right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for listening again. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, reach out to us, follow us. We'd love to hear from you. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah.
Andrew, hope you have a good night out there on the West Coast.
Will do.
You still have a whole night ahead of you.
I do.
All right, everybody. We'll see you. Go Big Red.
Big Red. See ya.